Hey guys, welcome back to Talking with Tyler, and on today's podcast I'll be talking about the Jets' loss to the Chargers this past Monday night, 27-6, as Zach Wilson was 33 for 49 for 263 yards, no touchdown passes, no interceptions, and had 7 rushing yards. Breece Hall was the leading rusher. He had 16 attempts for 50 yards, 10 receiving yards. Dalvin Cook, 2 attempts for 7 yards, 1 receiving yard. Garrett Wilson was the leading receiver. He had 7 receptions for 80 yards. Right behind him was Tyler Conklin that had 6 receptions for 66 yards. Gibson, 2 receptions for 32 yards. And Baldwin, he's the fullback. He had 1 reception for 7 yards. And then tight ends got a little action in this game, too. Uzama, 2 receptions for 11 yards. Malik Taylor, the guy we brought up, he had 1 reception for 7 yards. And the defense was led by C.J. Mosley. He was the leading tackler with 11 tackles. Jordan Whitehead had 4. Jets had 2 forced fumbles and 5 sacks in this game. 1 sack by Quentin Jefferson, 1 by Franco Myers, 1 by Jermaine Johnson. Solomon Thomas, too, had a sack. And the Jets also had 2 forced fumbles in this game. 1 by Will McDonald and also by DJ Reed. And the special teams was led by Greg Zuerlein. He was 2 for 2 from field goals. And Morstead punting, he had 7 punts for and 50.3 was his average, 59 long. Gibson had 3 kickoff returns, 8 yards, 2.7 in average, and 8 long. And Chargers side of the ball, Keenan Allen had 8 receptions for 77 yards to reach his 10,000 career yards receiving. And Justin Herbert was 16 for 30 for 136 yards. No touchdown passes, no interceptions. And Eckler had 2 rushing touchdowns. And the Chargers had a punt return for a touchdown. And the Jets had 4 fumbles this game. A lot of turnovers made by the Jets, which caused a lot of damage. So I have my dad back here for another podcast, and I'll be asking him some questions. So, Dad, what did you feel about this game?
I was a little nervous going into the game. The Jets did not play well against the Giants and somehow squeaked out a win. And it just felt like it was almost a trap game for the Jets. Even though it was a Monday night game and the Jets have played well on Monday night, it just I didn't feel great going into that game. Unfortunately, the Jets cannot score touchdowns and they could not convert on third downs. It's just their offense is anemic. It's just NFL teams cannot win games. We've talked about it on the previous podcasts that them winning, the Jets winning, was not sustainable. Even though their defense played great again. You saw the score 27-6, and you're like, oh wow, the defense let up 27 points, but they really didn't. It was a run back, so that was 7 for special teams there, and one of the fumbles from Wilson, they ran it back all the way to the 1 and then scored on the very next play. So you take 14 points away, and the defense again did a great job in holding, pretty high-powered offense. It's probably one of the top 5 or 7 QBs in the league to 13 points. But if you can't score touchdowns, you're never going to win. I mean, they held the Chargers to 191 total yards as opposed to the Jets 270. Herbert only had 107 passing yards, while Zach Wilson had 206. They had 87 rushes yards to the Jets 64. 14 first downs to the Jets 17. Now, they had 56 total plays, and the Jets had 77. Now, a lot of this could be deceiving because, again, there's no time of possession on a run back, on a punt. And when the offense starts at the 1 yard line after a fumble, there's not going to be a multitude of plays or time of possession. But if you were to take away the score on this stat line and you were to look, you would assume the Jets would win. But not in this fashion. They just can't do it.
How did you feel the offense played?
Well, I mean, the offense is the major problem with this team currently, and I think it's still, as much as Zach Wilson, struggles, and he's not playing consistent, and he's not always playing consistent, just consistently bad. He's just not playing well. This offensive line, while injury laden, has a ton of injuries. It should have been addressed in the offseason. It should have been addressed prior to the trade deadline, and it wasn't. And Billy Turner, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but did not have a great game. He was getting beat like a drum, and it was causing tons of hurry up. I think Zach Wilson was sacked 8 different times. Some of them are because he's holding onto the ball too long. He's not getting out of the pocket or not stepping into the pocket. But even if he steps up, the offensive line is not holding their ground and creating this throwing bubble for him, and he's just getting pressured all over the place. Now, did he miss throws? Absolutely. There was on the first play he missed the out by 2 or 3 yards. He missed a couple other people, pretty badly. But he also made some throws that had some tight spirals and really threw the ball in there. But Hackett, to his credit, I think tried to do something different. What kind of they ran a no huddle offense. What did you think of the no huddle?
I liked it.
I liked it too. What do you think? Do you think the no huddle helps Zach Wilson, or do you think it hurts him?
Helps.
And why do you think it helps him?
Because I think some teams move better at a fast pace, and when you're substituting multiple people in at one time, it's just a lot.
What do you? I think sometimes Zach plays better when he doesn't have to overthink and he just plays a little bit by feel. Now, I think I said this in the last 2 podcasts. You look at his stat line, and you said he was 33 for 46. I think it was somewhere about there.
33 for 49.
Yeah, okay, so he's about 58 or 60%, 270 yards, around 263, 270 yards, somewhere around there. No turnovers. Well, I'd rather see a stat line where he has 300 yards, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, or maybe even 2 interceptions, but they got to throw the ball down the field a little bit, and they got to stretch that defense. It'll help our tight ends, and it will obviously help Breece Hall. Breece Hall needs to get some space, and our offensive line is not holding their own. How about a screen? I mean, you see these teams where they hold for 1 or 2 seconds and they let the defensive lineman go, and then they all get downfield where they run a screen. Well, we're not even trying to do that, but how about throwing a screen if the defensive line is coming in so quick on the quarterback? Let them break loose and get downfield. So it's been a rough couple games. It's been a rough couple games for the Jets. And listen, they're 4-4. They're not out of it yet, but losing to an AFC team, West Coast team, and now having the Raiders on Sunday night, another AFC West team that's potentially going to be fighting for a wild card spot. We can't lose tie breaks to these teams, and we got to gather up wins before we have to play. Or we have to still play the Dolphins twice. We still have to play the Patriots, who aren't playing well, but for some reason we just can't seem to play them. And then the Bills are going to be, they're looking for a grudge match. So, Tyler, how about penalties? Penalties this time around.
The Jets had 8 penalties while the Chargers had 4.
Right. So, I mean, when you think about the offense, and we had 17 first downs, but there were just so many drives that we shot ourselves in the foot. Do you have I think you have a list of some of the things, or all off of memory. Just in the very first play, we defer and go get them to go 3 and out. Then unfortunately we go 3 and out because Zach misses that out route, and then we punt the ball and they run it back. So now it's 7-0 already. Well, you don't know this during the game, but when it's all said and done, we lost right there. You can't score more than 6 points. But what were some of the drive killers?
Rucker illegal formation ends with a field goal. Lazard dropped on a second, and Zach sacked on third. Lazard illegal shift negates a 14-yard run. Zach Brees mess up, pitch on 3rd and 3. Zach Wilson was sacked 2 times in red zone. And Rucker full start on 3rd and 3. Zach sacked. And Garrett Wilson illegal block in the back.
That hurt.
Zach's another fumble. Uzama drops touchdown.
10 the game.
10 the game.
Yeah, I mean it's just too many penalties, and when Saleh was asked after the game, he said, "Oh, we got to play faster, and you're supposed to be in your spots and things like that." I don't know if it's undisciplined or it's not knowing where to be. I think it's a little bit of both. But you mentioned in here a couple times, Lazard illegal shift negates a 14-yard first down run. Lazard drop pass, I don't know. He's got stone hands. He just listen. Some of these balls are not thrown perfectly, well. But when you're an NFL wide receiver and it hits you in the hands, you gotta help your quarterback. When you have a young quarterback that's struggling a little bit and your team, doesn't have any momentum, when balls hit your hand and they go on the ground, just puts so much pressure on your defense, and it just really, really, it's demoralizing. And we were at the game and you didn't really hear the boo birds too much. I mean, people were restless, but you didn't really hear too many boos. I've been at games where it's been, we've been at games where it's booing on the first play. They got to get it together for Sunday night and have a bounce back game, play well, prime time again, so everyone's going to be watching, and they could somehow squeak out a win against the Raiders, who are in their own right struggling a little bit, but they played well against obviously the Giants, which doesn't mean much, but they got a new coach. They're kind of reinvigorated. They want to win for this guy because they all like him. They got to get a win and go back to 4-4, and then I think it's that Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving, and then the Black Friday game.
Yeah.
Right, so that's going to be interesting. I think it'd be the first Black Friday game in NFL history, and the Jets have it.
No, we actually played the Raiders, then the Bills, and then the Dolphins.
Oh, Raiders, Bill. You're right. So again, this is a game where we got to get right. Any other points from the game that we might be missing?
The Chargers were one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and the offensive line didn't really do a great job helping Zach Wilson as he was sacked 8 times.
Yeah, so they do allow teams to get down the field. Their D backs and safeties, their secondary isn't fantastic, but their D line, they have
Joey Bosa,
and I think there's
Khalil
Mack, and they wreaked havoc on the whole entire offensive line. And again, Tippmann hurt and McGovern's out, and they had to move people over, but I don't think it was all Billy Turner's fault, but Billy Turner did not play well. And now he's on the IR. They said he had a broken bone in his hand, so I don't know if he was trying to play through that, so I do give him credit for that. But even Bart Scott after the game, he was not too kind to Billy Turner. He kind of exposed him. So listen, you don't like talking bad about anybody, but they got to get this offensive line right, and they got to do it with the people in house. And if they can't, they got to do something different. They got to go wildcat. They got to roll Zach out a little bit more. Maybe direct snaps and I still think throwing the ball downfield will help a little bit. Now that requires a little bit more, more timing and the offensive line to hold. But they got to get some play action. They got to get Garrett Wilson the ball more. I think, he's fumbling or trying to do a little bit too much because he knows when he gets the ball, it's the best chance for the Jets to score 6. And when I say score 6, I mean touchdown, not 2 field goals.
Yep, so now we're going to get to Tyler's takeaways. So my stud of this game, I hate to say this, but I would say Keenan Allen. He had 8 receptions for 77 yards, and he reached his 10,000 career yards receiving. And my dud would be turnovers, Jets turnovers. They had a lot of drive killers. The Jets fumbled the ball 4 times. And just like special teams issues and stuff.
Okay.
Dad, who's your stud?
So stud, I'm going to say the defense still. They're still flying around the ball. I don't think they've given up on their offense, but now I think they're playing a little bit differently. I saw Sauce got involved a little bit more. Reed got involved a little bit more, and they held, Herbert to, I think it was 107 yards, somewhere about there. So I think the defense has really done a good job. There were a couple times when the ball was on the turf, and I thought we could have got on it, but we tried to pick it up and run with it, and it kind of fumbled around and got the Chargers were able to recover the ball, and I think that's just a microcosm of the defense knowing that the offense is struggling, and they're like, man, I could flop on this ball and get it at the 30-yard line, and we only have to go 30 yards to get a touchdown, but I don't think they trust them enough to even have the ball, at the 30 or the red zone. It just seems like we're constantly either going to get 3 or we're going to get sacked and backed up. I think they're pressing a little bit. So hopefully the defensive coordinator was Earlbrick, keeps them focused and keeps them playing. And Hack and Salah have to do a better job. That was my my stud. Dud, I think, is going to have to be Lazard. He's being paid as a number 2 wide receiver, and right now, I don't know if he would play for other teams. Now, listen, he might play for other teams and have a better quarterback throwing him the ball, but based on his tape, he is not playing up to what we expected him to. Moreover, what we really need him to. And I think he's getting paid like $10 or $11 million. So he's got to catch the ball. He's got to help Zach out a little bit more. He's got to help him out. Are the balls thrown perfectly? No. But if they're within reach and they hit your hands, you gotta bring it in and just keep drives alive, keep them going. So he would be my stud. I hope I eat humble pie on Sunday and he plays a million times better, because I would be the first one to call him a stud. When that's due, but right now he's struggling.
So thank you guys for listening to my podcast as Jets will be taking on the Raiders this Sunday at 8:20, Sunday Night Football, primetime under the lights. And if anybody out there who is listening and would like to be a guest on my podcast, please email me at gamingwithtylerskirman@gmail.com. Also have that in the description of this podcast. So, hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and go Jets.
Go Jets.